Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our 2019 Filmmaker Highlight, a special event that we do just for our members and our community, and that's really what separates this theater, the Christopher B. Smith Raffel Film Center and CFI, from other places that you go. This is about community, and we thank you so much for supporting this community. I'd like to also recognize our namesake for this. It's Christopher B. Smith, and if it wasn't for him and many other people, we wouldn't be able to show you this film tonight. He's not here with his wife, Jeannie, but I think if we give him a big round of applause, he may hear it over on the other side of town. There's a couple of great things that are coming up, and one is Docklands, which is our documentary festival. Though the festival will be the Mill Valley Festival, celebrating 42 years in October, Docklands is only 3 years old, but it's a terrific festival, and it opens on May 3rd. And speaking of the Christopher B. Smith Raffel Film Center, this is our 20th anniversary, and we'll have a great selection of programs for you coming up this year. But back to tonight. It is an incredible night because we're here to show you a very special premiere of Gloria Bell, directed by Sebastian Lelio. And he, of course, is the Academy Award-winning director of A Fantastic Woman. But before there was The Fantastic Woman, there was a film called Gloria. And there's no coincidence about the name here. I would never call this film a remake, and I'm not going to say much because the director is here, and he can talk so much better about it than any of us. However, when I saw this film, I couldn't help but think that this is something like a new riff on a familiar theme. So it's like when you heard Eric Clapton do the acoustic version of Layla, or the acoustic version the Eagles do of Hotel California. So without further ado, please welcome Sebastian.
Thank you. Hello. Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Good evening. Thank you so much for being here. Yes, I mean, what you said is, I hope is true. I made this film, Gloria, in 2013, a film made in Chile, where I'm from. And that film was seen by a lot of people, and thank you. And then after that film, I was quite busy trying to make new films, and I was about to go and shoot A Fantastic Woman and a film called Disobedience, which is now what is my first film in English, shot in England a year ago or something. And so I had those two scripts ready, and I was informed by my team that Julianne Moore had seen Gloria and loved it, and wasn't necessarily interested in making a new version of it. And of course, I wasn't interested in making a new version of it, but she wanted to meet with me, and I was absolutely, of course, flattered. I was living in Berlin back then, so I flew to Paris, where she was, for a few days, and we met. And there is a funny, kind of like a misunderstanding in the foundation of this project, because I came to that meeting under the assumption that she wasn't interested, you know, in doing in revisiting the film and creating a new version or a remake. So we spoke like for an hour. I mean, I was listening to her, and I was and I was really moved because she was being really generous when talking about Gloria, about the character, the resonances of the character, the intricacies of the story. Like she had a deep understanding of it, and I was like, wow, this is really moving. And then towards the end of the meeting, after an hour, I said, well, thank you so much. It's been an honor, and I totally get it if you don't want to do a remake. And she said, wait, what? And I said, oh, what did I do? And she said, no, listen, I'm terrified. And that's when she got me. But I would only do it if you do it, if you directed it. And then I said, I heard myself saying, because I didn't say it, and I would only do it if you're in it. And then we hugged, and off I went. And I was like, what did I do? Because who, remakes his own film? But I love Julianne Moore so much as an actress that, the first film is, in a certain way, a love letter to Paulina Garcia, the actress that interpreted the original Gloria. And in many ways, this film is a love letter to Julianne Moore. Yes, so I hope you enjoy it. And not only musicians and playwrights have the right to revisit their own materials now. And I'll be here at the end if you have any questions or insults. Thank you.
Sebastian will be back for the Q&A with Zoe Elton, the Director of Programming for the Mill Valley Film Festival. Enjoy.
Please welcome back Director Sebastian Lelio. Have a seat, have a mic. Okay, now I totally feel like dancing. I mean, how can it's finishing something like this and then having that great song. Was it a coincidence that the song was Gloria and that she is Gloria? I mean, which came first, the song or the name?
No, we knew that we wanted the film to end with a dancing scene.
Yeah.
And in one shot,
Yeah.
one sequence shot. And then we were discussing what that song could be. And we had a few awful ideas, and then somehow the idea of Gloria popped up, and it was like, and we were looking for a name for the character as well. So it was like,
Oh,
yeah, maybe we can use that song, and at the same time she can be called Gloria.
perfect.
And it would be like one of those.
Oh, that's great.
Like really, are you going to play that song because she's called, and make it work anyway?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were saying earlier that the cat was actually based on somebody that you knew. That
I knew the cat.
you knew the. Oh, you knew the cat. I was sorry. Yes.
No.
Or the cat incident, let's say, was similar to something that you'd actually known. Was the same? Is that true of, say, the dancing? I mean, where did these elements in the story come from?
In the original film, everything came from listening to my mother and her friends for years.
Right.
So they would, especially when they became more grown up,
Right.
they would gather and they would drink some pisco sour, and I would always be invited to the table. And I was always like, yes, because it was a lot of fun to listen to them. But I had no idea that had like, it was potentially movie material, Mm-hmm. I was just listening to them and quite, connected to, having fun with their anecdotes and stories. They were telling a lot of stories that weren't necessarily, precisely fantastic in terms when it came to relationships with men belonging to that generation, and there was something about becoming, so to say, invisible so I was very moved by all these things that they were talking about. And then I would say like a few years after that, I at some point I realized that there was a movie there, you know. So the film is really like a collage or like a Frankenstein made of different anecdotes and stories that really happen to different women I know.
Mm-hmm. So had anybody else approached you to do a remake of this film before you had that conversation with Julianne Moore?
Yes.
Okay, can you talk about that a little bit?
No.
Good. I love that you won't
I'm a
talk
gentleman.
about it. Well, it seems to be that the curse of foreign films, you know, get released in the United States and then they get sold for the remake rights. And all too often, it's not pretty. You know, it doesn't work out well. So it's actually, you know, it's kind of fascinating to me that people actually had approached you for a remake, but you didn't go there. But obviously, this was the right moment. I was also looking back at the review that was in the New York Times that A.O. Scott wrote for the Chilean Gloria, the first Gloria, and he said, in a North American movie, a fizzy Hollywood comedy or of empowerment, or a glum indie kitchen sink melodrama, a woman like Gloria would likely invite either pity or condescending encouragement. And I thought that was such an interesting thing that he said about the first film, especially now that we have an American version of the film. And I think it says a lot about attitudes in American filmmaking, but it also says a lot about your attitude in the way that you work on character. So I'm wondering, could you talk a little bit, especially in relation to perhaps working with Julianne Moore, about what you want to see come out of a character when you're working with an actor?
Well, I mean, I have to say that I did this film because I felt that I was going to be protected,
right?
You know, and I was going to have the same amount of freedom that I had on the first place when I did the first version. Otherwise, I would have not even thought about it, you know, because what's the point to reduce your levels, the level of your range of action or your freedom to in order to revisit your own film? It didn't make any sense. So I only did it because I was surrounded by people that were willing to secure that.
Yeah.
And that understood that was maybe a potential key for the film to work again, you know. But then to answer your question, maybe a way to answer it is to say that I love writing characters and I need them and it's fascinating to imagine them and to create a world around them and to make them three-dimensional, etc. But then I'm always waiting for the actor or actress to arrive. And when that happens, the character is there, but it's not longer that relevant. What is relevant is whatever is in the intersection between the character and the challenges that interpretation demands, but especially what the human being that is going to interpret that character is going to bring. So I'm more interested in Julianne Moore as a person interpreting Gloria than in Gloria as an abstract idea.
Yeah.
You know, actually, I think that Gloria doesn't exist as an abstract idea.
Yeah.
Is someone interpreting her.
Yeah.
And one of the sources of cinematic pleasure when you see a film is that we all know that it's fiction. We all know that she's not Gloria. I mean, especially you, know that she's an American actress called Julianne Moore that is doing as if. So we are always oscillating between the two dimensions. You know, we see the character and we see the artist giving an artistic battle in front of our eyes, and even if we know that, we are hypnotized by the power of fiction.
Yeah.
But I love the zone in between, you know. So I would say the characters are they feel real, and they feel like real people that maybe one feels that they existed before the film started, and they will keep on living after the film ends. And that feeling, which is something that hopefully happens in the spectator's experience, is the product of a series of artificial procediments, you know, in order to create that illusion.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's an illusion that has a lot of truth, because there's someone real that has committed her life, in this case, to this art form, who is, you know, giving everything she has to make that work.
It sounds as though you've, as an artist, figured out a way of being able to be in the moment so that you can draw that out of the actors that you work with. And I wonder, in revisiting this story, which is, you know, it's about 5 years after you made the first version of it, what did you learn about your personal evolution as an artist over that, you know, over the period of time that between the first time you made the film and the second time? I mean, it's 5 years. It's like it's a long time, and it's not. I mean, you know, in the meantime, you'd made Fantastic Woman, you'd made Disobedience, you know, both fascinating and very different films. But what did you observe in yourself that had perhaps shifted or changed or not changed, or become stronger, perhaps?
I mean, clearly I'm more mature, you know.
Right.
I wish I knew. I really don't know. I mean,
that's fine.
The only thing I was aware of is that after making a Fantastic Woman, which is a much more stylized film than the original Gloria, and then Disobedience, which is again somewhere in between realism and a more stylized approach, I felt that I was somewhere else as a filmmaker.
Yeah.
I guess that implies as a person as well, you know.
Right.
So I really wanted to actualize the style. So if you compare the two films, there are many things that pop up, you know, like the first one, it was made, I mean, some scenes were shot in my house because we had no money, you know, and in this case, this is a low-budget film, but still we had much more money than in the first version. And the first one is a little bit rawer, and this one, everything seems to be like floating, and the color palette is quite different. The first one is more like down to earth and maybe sadder, and this one is more trippy. It's like we dropped a little drop of LSD in the entire process.
Well, it is Los Angeles, after all.
Yeah, there's something dreamlike about everything. And we really, with the DOP, Natasha Breyer, and production designer, Dan Bishop, we were talking about trying to add almost like a sci-fi element to it, like kind of like a dreamlike element that you can feel it here and there. It's not all the time, but sometimes there are passages in the film where even there's not even dialogue, you know, and things are kind of like floating, and it's kind of like a dream when she's in Vegas and when she's back in the, you know, greatest hangover in history.
Right.
All those moments are very, I would say, abstract, and they are about cinema, you know.
Yes, absolutely. Talk a little bit about working with Julianne Moore. A friend of mine has been the first AD on a lot of Todd Haynes' films, and obviously he's worked with her, you know, many times. and when he was working with her on Wonderstruck, he was really struck by her fearlessness, particularly in the times when she was playing scenes that were supposed to be silent movies, and they had a wind machine going on at her and all this kind of stuff. And I saw the scene in this where she's flying, she's on that machine, and I wondered if you used a double for that, or did she do it herself? Or both?
A bit of both, but yeah, I mean, the thing, I mean, this is a role for an actress that is an absolute protagonist role.
Yeah.
So we see her. If you noticed, she's always framed. There's no one frame where her body is not there. Even in the reverse angles, when we are observing the other characters, is through her body.
Right.
Even when we see the skeleton at a floor level, is through her shoe. So it was very demanding for Julianne, and she goes through the entire emotional spectrum, and she lives all kinds of situations, and it's a bittersweet story. So she's up, down. So it's kind of like a great vehicle for an actress to express it all, so to say. And in that sense, of course, she was. Julianne was always, there with great energy and with a fearless attitude.
Yeah. And how often do you get to work with a paint gun? I mean, it's
what?
With a paint gun.
Oh, you mean the paintball?
Yeah. The
yeah.
Yes.
The paintball gun. Yeah.
Yes.
Well.
Yeah.
I mean, it's practical. You can kill someone and be released.
Yes.
And relieved, and then not go to jail.
It's good. Let's take some questions from the audience. We have a couple of people here with mics. So what we'll do is, I see there's a couple on this side already. So let's take one of those, and and then we'll have a question from the other side. Okay.
Question in the back.
Thank you.
Hi, I am wondering how you decided to keep the music in the 70s, 80s music when the rest of the film seemed to be happening in present time.
Well, it is happening in present time.
But the music was not.
It is. The music is being played in present times, but it's from the 80s. Like I could do it right now with Spotify. It's not. The film is not happening into periods. It's a film that happens in 2019, so to say, where there's someone that listens to music from a few years ago. That's it.
Oh, okay, always. The entire soundtrack was from then. So at the beginning, I felt like I was seeing something filmed then, and with the oversized eyeglasses.
Yes.
I felt like I was looking at a period piece, but then it turned out that I wasn't. So it was a little confusing to me.
Until you saw a Macintosh or an iPhone.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, that's part of the game of the film.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Another question? Have it on this side? Okay.
It's been 30 years since democracy was returned to Chile. You're probably old enough to remember when it wasn't. And I just wonder what the state of film, how it evolved over these 30 years in Chile.
30 years since?
We're not quite sure what you said and what the question is.
It's been 30 years since democracy was...
Oh, democracy.
So how's film evolved from that time?
Film?
Yeah, the film industry.
Yeah,
and
the film industry, yeah.
During dictatorship that went from 73 to 1990, Chilean cinema was dismantled, So film schools were banned and shut down, and there was all the filmmakers had to go either to exile or underground. So it stopped, so to say. And then in early 90s, a process of reconstruction began, and somehow the generation I belong to is the one that had it easier, because we were able to go back to the recently reopened film schools, and we were benefited as well by the digital revolution. So suddenly it wasn't, I mean, you didn't have to sell your house to make a film, which was what was happening in the 80s, you know. And so it's been a process of slow reconstruction, and I wouldn't say that now we have a strong industry, because it's a very small market. There is a very fragile industry, but there is a moment of great vitality, and yeah, we release around, I don't know, I mean, the state finances 6 films a year, and I don't know, 15 to 20 are released in average nowadays. Some of them are very local, and some of them manage to be interesting enough to capture international interest.
Thank you. Next question.
On the far left.
Yeah.
I apologize if this is an indelicate question, but the actress who played Gloria in the first film is a very different physical type from Julianne Moore, and I wonder if when you met her and considered her for the role, you thought she might be too beautiful.
But the thing about Julianne Moore is that she is, I mean, how I see it is that she incarnates the Hollywood myth element, and at the same time, the everyday woman element. And she can oscillate between both effortlessly. And I think even though she's incredibly beautiful, she is such a great actress that she can make us all, you know, feel comfortable with her presence. Hopefully not like doubting that, oh, how come, you know, a woman that beautiful is in that situation. It was a concern, but then as soon as I saw her performing, it wasn't a preoccupation anymore.
Thank you. We have time for a couple more questions. Yeah.
To your far right.
Thank you.
Two questions. The poem that he recited, that was Pablo Neruda, wasn't it?
No, it was Claudio Bertoni, a more recent poet from,
Okay.
yeah,
And
less than years.
I noticed that all of your films are sort of based with a female protagonist, female main character. Do you have another expectation of another film that focus on a major female character?
Female character?
Yeah.
I don't oppose to the idea, but I have some films that I'm preparing that are about men as well. I might do a remake of Lassie.
A lot of subtext in that, I'm sure. Okay, next question.
I have one in the center in the back.
Thank you.
I also saw the first and loved them both, but I'm wondering, the first, she seemed so much more vulnerable and frail. Not frail, but how did you see the two actresses different, and do you have a favorite, one or the other?
No, I mean, The game of the film is to turn a character that should be a secondary character in a normal film and turn it into an absolute protagonist. You know, this character should be the wife or the mother, and the camera should go with the husband or the son. But what the film does is that it stays with Gloria. And it's a very, so to say, it's kind of like an absolute portrait. We see her from every angle, you know, all the time, at every time of the day, in every possible situation. So if you change the woman/actress that is interpreting Gloria, even if it's at a subtle level, everything changes. So I like them both. Yeah.
Okay, let's take one last question.
In the back here?
Thank you.
Can you please talk about the cat? What kind of cat is that? And does it belong to someone who was involved with the production?
It's called, the breed is Sphinx cat. They are great actors because they are very obedient. So you really, it's like plasticine. So you move the head and they tend to stay like that for a few minutes. So you can shape the ears and the leg, and it tends to work. And we had, in this case, since we had a bit of more money, we had twins. So when one was getting tired, we would call the other one.
For real? Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And but no, they were trained Sphinx cats.
That's great.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your film. Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Yeah. And we'll look forward to Lassie.